So let's now discuss the formation of bone tissue. During development, most bones will begin as hyaline cartilage. However, some bones, like the cranial bones of the skull and the clavicles, will begin as a fibrous connective tissue. These tissues will be the foundation that bone tissue will use as a template, and bone tissue will later replace these cartilage and fibrous connective tissue structures. Endochondral ossification is the process, or the term that we use to describe the process of replacing the hyaline cartilage template of the skeleton with bony tissue. On the other hand, intramembranous ossification is the process of replacing the fibrous connective tissue of the cranial bones and the clavicles with bony tissue. Now, most of the endochondral ossification and the intramembranous ossification will have already been completed by the time we were born. Some of this replacement or some of these ossification processes will continue, particularly in the long bones, during childhood and adolescence as we grow taller. Speaking of as we grow taller, the process that occurs in order for us to grow taller and for our limbs to grow longer is bone lengthening. And the process of bone lengthening occurs primarily in the long bones. It is seen during infancy and adolescence, and it is the process in which the upper limbs and the lower limbs will grow longer. It occurs at locations in the long bones called the epiphyseal plates, which are found at the junction between the epiphyses and the diaphysis of the long bones. And this will be an endochondral ossification process. The epiphyseal plates are plates of hyaline cartilage. These plates are the remnants of the fetal hyaline cartilage that the long bones started out as. So the way that this works is that new cartilage tissue is formed by mitosis on the side of the epiphyseal plate that is closest to the epiphysis. Old cartilage on the side of the epiphyseal plate that is closest to the diaphysis is being replaced by bony tissue. And so this process that's occurring here is just another form of endochondral ossification. A hormone called growth hormone, which is released by the pituitary gland at the base of the brain, controls the rate at which the epiphyseal plates, that is the cartilage of the epiphyseal plates, will grow. More growth hormone being released into the bloodstream equates to more growth of the epiphyseal plates, which means that this person will grow taller during adolescence or grow much taller than their peers during adolescence. So as adolescence ends, mitosis of the cartilage in the epiphyseal plates tends to slow, and eventually the bone that is replacing that cartilage will catch up to the growing end of the cartilage and completely replace it, and completely eliminate that cartilage from the epiphyseal plates. And this process is called the epiphyseal plate closure. So once the cartilage is completely replaced by bone, the bones will stop growing longer. So in this diagram on the left, and on the right as well, the white arrows will show the locations or the former locations of the epiphyseal plates. In the image on the left here, the white arrows are indicating the locations of the epiphyseal plates in the hand of a child. And in the diagram on the right, the arrows show the locations of the closed epiphyseal plates in the hand of an adult. The skeleton also plays a really important role in the maintenance of blood calcium. And calcium is a mineral that is critical in muscle contraction, neurotransmitter release from neurons in the nervous system, the coagulation of blood to form clots, as well as cell mitosis. Most of the body's calcium is trapped within the skeleton, so that is the minerals that are in the skeleton are not accessible to the blood. And in order to be useful in the bloodstream, it has to be dissolved and released from the skeleton. The blood calcium is very carefully maintained within a range of about 9 milligrams to 11 milligrams of calcium per per 100 milliliters of blood. If blood calcium falls, glands called the parathyroid glands will release a hormone called parathyroid hormone into the bloodstream. The parathyroid glands are embedded within the thyroid gland, which is located just below the larynx in the throat. The parathyroid hormone will stimulate cells called osteoclasts to break down bone tissue and release calcium into the bloodstream. The osteoclast cells use acids to dissolve the bone minerals and place those dissolved minerals into the bloodstream. If blood calcium levels rise above or fall below that narrow range that we just discussed, it can create some very serious problems for the body. Hypocalcemia, which is the condition where blood calcium falls below 9 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood, can cause muscles as well as the nervous system to be overly sensitive to stimuli. That means that the muscles will contract or the nervous system will fire at inappropriate times. We refer to this as hyperexcitability. On the other hand, hypercalcemia is the condition in which blood calcium rises above 11 milligrams per 100 milliliters of blood. And it can cause muscles and nervous tissue to be non-responsive to stimuli, meaning that muscles will not contract or the neurons of the nervous system will not fire and send signals when they need to. Additionally, sustained hypercalcemia can lead to deposits of calcium in the blood vessels as well as in the kidneys, and it could possibly lead to the formation of kidney stones. We see that bones are also quite responsive to the mechanical stresses that we place on them. So that is, the mechanical stresses are the weight-bearing forces that our body weight puts on our skeleton, and also the pulling forces that our muscles subject our bones to. Bones will actually grow thicker in response to increases in weight or increases in muscle force. There's a law that describes bone response to this stress. It's called Wolff's law, and Wolff's law very simply states that bones will grow in response to the mechanical demands that we place on it, or, as we'll see in a few examples, the lack of mechanical demands that are placed on it will actually cause skeletal mass to decrease. So Wolff's law helps to explain why bedridden patients have weak bones. Their muscles are not exerting the same forces on those bones that they used to, and also since the patient is not standing or walking, their skeleton is not being subjected to the force of their body weight, and in response to that, their bone mass will decrease, and bones will become thinner and more easily fractured. Similar principles apply to astronauts in low-gravity environments. Their skeleton is not subjected to the force of the weight of their body, and so, again, in response to that, just like our bedridden patients, the bone mass will decrease. Wolff's law also explains why weightlifters have more bone mass at the sites where their strongest and largest muscles attach to.